The Moses Basket, written by Jenny Koralek. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. And she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And Miriam, the prophetess, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her, with timbrels and with dances. Long, long ago, in the land of Egypt, there were thousands and thousands of Hebrew slaves. Once they had been shepherds who roamed far and wide beyond the great river, Nile, with their flocks. But the powerful Pharaoh began to force them to build his temples, tombs, pyramids, and palaces, with bricks made from straw and mud, and to drag huge stones across the desert for pillars and walls. They worked hard. If they stopped to rest, cruel overseers would whip them back to work. And now the Pharaoh had so many Hebrew slaves, he began to fear they might turn against him. So he sent out a terrible command. Every baby boy born to a Hebrew slave was to be thrown into the river. But there was one mother who was determined not to let her little son die. I will hide him on the river, she said. That is the last place Pharaoh's soldiers will go looking for babies. I will weave him a cradle out of papyrus reeds, and I will cover it with slime and pitch so that it will float like a boat. The baby's sister, Miriam, ran down to the river as the sun was setting, and cutting a huge bundle of reeds, staggered home with them as fast as she could. Her mother set to work at once. All night she wove the weeds with nimble fingers, shaping them firmly and tightly into a small cradle. Then she carefully covered every inch of it with slime and pitch. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she held her sleeping son close for one last time. Then she laid him in the cradle and tenderly covered him up. The sun was slowly rising, the great burning African sun, as Miriam helped her mother carry the little basket down to the river. Their feet made no sound on the damp, sandy ground. "Hurry, mother, hurry," said Miriam. "She will be here soon." "Who will be here soon?" said her mother. "The princess, Pharaoh's daughter. I've often seen her bathing here early in the morning." "If the princess finds our baby, she will kill him," whispered Miriam's mother. "No," said Miriam. "She will save him." "How do you know?" said her mother. "Because I know things," said Miriam, gently stroking the baby's head. "Remember how the house was filled with sunbeams and moonbeams when he was born? I knew then he was special. But quick, help me set the basket afloat." Together, mother and daughter waded into the shallow waters and gave the basket a gentle push. At once, the basket began to float, like the beautifully made small boat it was. Creeping through the reeds as they followed the basket with the sleeping baby in it, above them, the sun slowly turned the river to gold. Then everything happened at once. A crowd of young girls laughing and chattering came out of the place and began running gaily through the garden and down the steps. "What did I tell you?" whispered Miriam. "Here comes the princess. She's the tallest one." "She's seen the basket," said her mother softly. "Look, she's sending a servant to fetch it." They hardly dared to look as the baby was laid in the princess's arms. He was crying. "Isn't he beautiful?" the princess said. "He must be one of the Hebrew babies. Oh, poor little thing, he's hungry. He still needs his mother's milk." Then Miriam stepped bravely out of the reeds and went straight up to the princess. She fell to her knees and said, "Your Highness, shall I call one of the slave women to come and nurse the baby for you?" The princess smiled at Miriam. She seemed to understand. "Yes, child, go," she said. Miriam ran back and fetched her mother, who came and knelt before the princess. "I will pay you to feed the child until he is old enough to come back to me," said the princess, placing the baby in his mother's arms. "Then I shall raise him as my own son. He will be a prince, and I shall call him Moses, because it means drawn from the water." When they were safely home again, Miriam's mother stared at her with tears of joy in her eyes. "It all happened as you said it would," she said. "Yes," said Miriam. And she picked up her drum and began to sing and dance, just as she would do many years later, when Moses led the Hebrew slaves out of Egypt into freedom and a land of milk and honey.